Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order at 1 o'clock. And I'm going to remind folks that the proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. Can we have the roll call, please?
Thank you. Mayor Clarkson, are you present?
I am.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Here.
Councillor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Lanshead?
He's present.
He's present.
Yeah, he's muted.
Looks like he's getting some technological assistance. For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer.
Present.
Steve Rockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Barb Waldron, Director of Building and Planning, CBO. Will be joining us. Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Ann Ruth, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Sarah Dillamarter, Junior Planner.
Present.
Chelsea Carpenter, Waste Management Public Works Coordinator.
Present.
Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present. And Councillor Lanshead, do we have you now?
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Okay, we respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Grandma, and Scoogile Islands First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibility as members of council. Thank you. Now, at this time, I want to say good morning to council. It is certainly nice to see you all here. And Carol, actually face-to-face here. And also the staff. We are gradually getting back to some degree of normal. Now, at this point, I'm going to remind council members of their obligation to declare pecuniary interest that they may have either now or at any time in the future. We're going to have approval of the, and Jesse.
Mayor Clarkson,
Yes.
I'd like to declare a possible pecuniary interest in the Alpine Village Pirates Glen water system. And later on in the agenda, you're setting the new rate. I'd like to declare pecuniary interest in that item as well.
Okay, and Jesse will give you the paperwork for that at the close of the meeting. Is that okay, Jesse? Okay, so you're going to, Jesse's now going to speak to an amendment for the agenda.
Yeah, thank you for you, Mayor Clarkson. I'm requesting that the agenda be amended to delete items 6.1, 7.1, and 13.6, which are all related to zoning bylaw amendment file 2022-05, which is for Weir. So I would just ask that the agenda be approved as amended.
So if we can have a motion to approve the amended agenda. Councillor Armstrong and Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion has carried. We need to have a motion to adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting of March the 22nd, statutory public meeting of March the 22nd. Motion, please. Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Franzen, all in favor? Motion is carried. Minutes and reports from committees and boards. Police Services Board special meeting, March the 23rd. Motion, please. Councillor Lanshead and Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor. Motion is carried. Liaison reports for council boards and committees. Are there any liaison reports from the EDAC, PRCAC, Public Service, PSB, or the Library Board? Anybody put your hand up if you'd like to comment? Okay. We don't need a motion for that one, Jesse? Now, Sarah, you're going to speak to a statutory public meeting, please. Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Don't we have to suspend the regular meeting and go into an open meeting?
Yes.
Through you, this item has been deleted. I was just under the understanding that the junior planner wanted to make a comment
Okay.
for anyone listening that was in attendance for this public meeting.
If not, we'll move on. Presentations.
Adele, Adele, do you have anything to add?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, I don't, but Sarah has some comments on that application just to allow council to know why the request was that we defer the application. So Sarah can provide the details.
Is she there, Adele?
Yes, thank you through you, Madam Mayor. On Monday, April 4th, 2022, the applicant requested withdrawal of the application 22-05 pending the submission of additional information. The application will undergo recirculation for a public meeting to be held at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will now have a presentation from Natalie Baker, Business and Development Manager, and Brent Martin, Senior Operations Manager from Ontario Clean Water Agency, Aqua, regarding annual review of operations. Please unmute your audio and or share your camera and make your presentation. You will have 20 minutes. We will ask council that all questions are saved until the end of the presentation.
Mayor, I will remove myself from the meeting.
Thank you. And it is noted that Councillor Franzen has left the meeting at 1:07.
Councillor Franzen, I'll just turn off your webcam.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors and municipal staff. For those of you who I have yet to meet, or I guess do not remember me from last year's council presentation, my name is Natalie Baker and I'm the Business Development Manager with the Ontario Clean Water Agency. Today, we also have Brent Martin, who is the Senior Operations Manager for your facilities. And lucky for me, he is here to answer any of your difficult questions at the end of this presentation. It is certainly nice to be here with you virtually, even though I only live 2 minutes down the road, and I'm certainly looking forward to getting back to in-person council meetings in the future. Also, a thank you to Madam Clerk for moving through the slides today, as my internet can be a little bit dicey. So slide 2, please. So just in case you had forgotten, I will start the presentation with a brief overview of who Aqua is and our operations around the province. I will then give an overview of the operations and maintenance of your facilities owned by the municipality, which will include the maintenance items and capital projects for both 2021 and 2022. We will then go over the inspections by the MECP for 2021 and an external audit that was conducted by SAI Global. We'll finish up with a quick overview of the annual reports that were provided to Council in March. Slide 3, please. So Aqua currently services more than 75% of the existing outsourced market here in Ontario, and our clients are made up of municipalities, First Nations, industries, and institutions. Aqua has approximately 900 employees providing a full range of technical and advisory services, and we currently operate more than 1,000 facilities across the province. We operate for 180 neighboring municipalities, just like the municipality of Trent Lakes, with the mandate to protect human health and the environment. The scale and scope of our operations is quite expansive. We operate one of the largest membrane filtration plants in North America, the world's largest municipal biosolids incineration complex, and some of the smallest communal systems in remote Ontario, such as the First Nations operation at Moose Factory on James Bay. Slide 4, please. Our goal is to assist our clients in managing their water and wastewater facilities and associated distribution and collection systems at every stage of the asset life cycle, and to help them ensure sustainability for their systems into the future. As mentioned, operations and maintenance is our core business, but we do offer clients a broad array of related services such as financing, planning, engineering, construction, training, and technical and advisory services such as process optimization, energy management, and asset management. Slide 5, please. Aqua takes a shared services approach to operations, which allows us to find economies of scale and cost savings for our clients. This approach allows us to purchase bulk supplies and equipment province-wide, which produces savings that municipalities usually wouldn't see. We use a hub and spoke model to deliver service where larger operation contracts anchor our hubs, and shared resources are deployed to the smaller municipalities or smaller industry contracts. This structure reflects our commitment to meeting the needs of our clients by facilitating the efficient sharing of management, administration, and operational systems to benefit our clients. So some other surrounding clients that would be involved in this shared services approach with the municipality of Trent Lakes would be the city of Kawartha Lakes, which obviously you know is quite close, the township of Minden Hills, as well as 8 other non-municipal clients that include long-term living facilities and hospitals. Slide 6, please. So under the current contract between Aqua and the municipality, we operate and maintain the Buckhorn and Alpine Village drinking water systems and associated distribution systems. I'm not going to go through all the included items in our agreement, as it would take me all day, but just some of the typical operations include daily rounds, review of trending and residuals, distribution checks, chlorine residuals, monitoring of flows, chemicals used, water quality, sampling and lab testing, routine maintenance and major maintenance, as well as compliance management and regulatory reporting. If you are looking for further detail or would like some additional light reading, our contract with the municipality would have a more detailed list of those items. Slide 7, please. So Aqua's approach to asset maintenance and protection involves a multi-layered collaboration of human skill, robust software, and sound data analysis, and an overarching commitment to best practices and asset stewardship. Aqua's WMS has been an essential tool in enabling efficient and effective maintenance and operational practices. So this system engages more than just a computerized listing of equipment and recommends maintenance on an annual and monthly and quarterly basis. Aqua uses IBM Maximo, which is represented in this screenshot here. So this is just an example of one of your operators were to go to one of your facilities and log in. They can see the number of work orders that have been generated, what work needs to be done today or this week or this month, and further into the year. Slide 8, please. So Aqua's computerized maintenance management system, as I just described, has allowed your operations team to tag and keep an inventory of 132 pieces of equipment in the facilities owned by the municipality. Each piece of tagged equipment has a unique barcode and ID number, and every asset has a maintenance schedule associated with them. So it, like I said, schedules monthly, quarterly, and annual maintenance, but based on owner's manuals and best practices for that piece of equipment. So this slide just shows the breakdown of the 407 work orders that were generated and completed in 2021. And as you can see, 265 were all preventative maintenance, 29 were operational, 99 were corrective, meaning an operator noticed something during a daily rounds, created a work order, and then corrected the error that they saw, and 14 were major maintenance or capital. We believe the maintenance history with a piece of equipment is very important when trying to determine whether to replace or repair, and allows operations staff as well as yourselves the ability to make informed decisions and allocate funds correctly. Slide 9, please. So every year, the municipality is provided with a 6-year major maintenance capital recommendation list for the facilities. The list is created using a combination of information such as operational knowledge, experience working in the facilities, engineering design, and information from Aqua CMMS, which I just explained in the last 2 slides. So this document contains of lists of requests for equipment replacement and repair, as well as an explanation as to why it's being recommended. For example, if the replacement relates to compliance or health and safety. So this table in this slide represents the different reasons why recommendations are made. And then we also provide a level of priority for the request, seen in the legend on the slide, with either a high, medium, or low priority. Once submitted, we wait for, well, municipal approval, and then we work very closely with municipal staff to complete the approved work. Slide 10, please. So in 2021, Aqua completed multiple capital projects on behalf of the municipality, which included cartridge filters, annual pump maintenance, well 2 cleaning, new Miltronics in Alpine, and Singer valve repair. Now, I am sure you have read Madam CAO's water budget report in 10.5.1 of the agenda today, where it does outline some overages in the budget for 2021. So I did want to take a little bit of time today to explain that. And I'm sorry it's not in this slide. It was just a little difficult to give a fulsome explanation in a slide format. So there were 3 main areas that, oh, we're just going to go back, sorry. There were 3 main areas that caused the increases. First, we have seen extreme price increases in supplies and equipment, not only for your local facilities, but across the province. So equipment that has been we've been purchasing for multiple years and have seen very minimal price increases, had dramatic price increases in 2020 and 2021. Inflation, parts and equipment shortages have led to price increases by manufacturers, suppliers, and services providers. So an example of this in the actual budget would be the cartridge filters for Alpine Village. Usually we budget around $15,000 for that product. And this year in 2021, we were billed $20,000 for that product. So we were seeing multiple large increases in many different equipment formats. We also saw increases in services for well cleaning, as well as just the cost for water haulage, which is used for flushing, as well as distribution repairs when there's a leak in the system. Secondly, based on historicals, we had suggested budgeting a total of $24,000 for unplanned distribution repairs. And that was based on the historicals that we had seen over the last 5 years. For 2021, unfortunately, it was a very difficult year for distribution repairs, with a total of 6 repairs costing $45,000, and then another $20,000 for the bulk water supply to be supplied while those repairs were being corrected. There was also another 2 breaks on the private side, which put further demand on providing the bulk water. In Alpine Village, Aqua did conduct overnight isolation leak detection on June 13th, 17th, and then July 12th, as well as regular distribution inspections, and used our listening devices, as we were finding that when we corrected one leak, the flows would drop for a short period of time, but then they would start increasing again as another leak got worse. So this service was provided free of charge to try to decrease any of the future breaks in the system. Lastly, because I did say there were 3 main causes, we had a number of unplanned failures which added to those budget overages. So these included the new turbidity analyzer, new Miltronics, and the Singer valve repair. Although we tried to anticipate equipment failures based on expected asset life cycle and maintenance history, sometimes failures do occur outside of our control. Slide 11, please. So moving on to 2022, and once again referencing that major maintenance and capital recommendations for 2022 outlined in the 2022 water budget report on 10.5.1, we have suggested well cleaning and inspection for both facilities, chemical pump spare parts, distribution flushing, filters for both facilities, backwash tank inspection, as well as clear well cleaning and inspection. In addition, based on the 2021, we've also increased the budget recommendation for distribution and repairs to 50,000 for both facilities combined. So this was from the previous 24,000 budgeted for 2021. And then unplanned maintenance to 18,000. So half of the total recommended budget is for the distribution, repaired, and unforeseen failures. We certainly hope that we will not have to use this budget, but do feel it's important to suggest a higher value based on what we've seen here in 2021. I am happy to report that so far for 2022, we have not had any distribution breaks requiring repair. So I guess we should all knock on wood prior to moving to slide 12. So moving on to the inspections in 2021, both Buckhorn Lake Estates and Alpine Village drinking water systems under Regulation 170 of the Safe Drinking Water Act are to receive annual inspections by the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. The primary focus of an inspection is to confirm compliance with the Ministry of the Environment regulations, as well as evaluating conformance with the Ministry drinking water related policies and guidelines during that inspection period. The ministry utilizes a comprehensive multi-barrier approach in the inspection of water systems that focuses on source water, treatment, distribution, monitoring components, as well as management practices. I am happy to report that both systems received 100% inspection rating during the 2021 inspection period. And I did a little digging, and over the past 5 years, together with Municipality, we have had a total of 10 inspections, all in which have received 100% inspection rating. Slide 13, please. So as part of the drinking water system, and in order to maintain a municipal drinking water license, there are several requirements, and one of those requirements is to be an accredited operating authority. With this, there are annual audits performed on the drinking water systems owned by the municipality. There are internal audits, which are prepared by Aqua, and there are external audits, which are prepared by a third party. In this case is SAI Global. So the difference between an inspection and an audit is the inspections are measuring up against all Safe Drinking Water Act related regulations, and the audit is measuring up against our operational plans. So not unlike an ISO concept that we may see for industry, but this one is specific to the drinking water systems across Ontario. So as with our inspections, these audit findings reflect the hard work of your operators and everyone involved, and we're happy to report that there were no non-conformances identified by SAI Global, nor were there any opportunities for improvement. Slide 14, please. So moving on to those annual reports that were provided to Council in March, there are 3 main reporting requirements outlined in Ontario Regulation 170, and the annual report includes detail of all 3. So Schedule 16, which is the reporting of any adverse test results, then Section 11, which is known as the annual report, which summarizes the quality of treated water in terms of turbidity, chlorine residuals, lead, organic and inorganic parameters, and highlights any exceedances over that regulation. Finally, Schedule 22, the summary report, which looks at the quantity of water. So what you're seeing when you're looking through those reports is really an overview of the quality of water and then an overview of the quantity of water for your systems. Slide 15, please. So as outlined, Section 11 reports any exceedances over Ontario Regulation 169 parameters. So we're looking at the quality of water for both systems. It begins under the title Regulatory Sample Results and outlines numerous tables for microbiological testing, operational testing, inorganic parameters, lead testing, organic parameters, and any additional samples required from the ministry. I'm not going to go through each line item because I will certainly proceed over my time limit, but in summary, and what's important to note for council is that both facilities had no exceedances over that maximum acceptable concentration for any inorganic or organic parameters for 2021. Slide 16, please. The reporting requirements for Schedule 22 summary reports is to present the latest quantity of data. So as I previously mentioned, and it's broken down into both raw water and treated water categories. For raw water, the average daily volume, in this case, groundwater over the years compared to that permit to take water limit. And then the same comparison is made for the maximum daily volume, which is the maximum amount of water taken during a single day during the year. For treated water, the average volume is compared to the municipal drinking water license, which outlines a rated capacity for your facilities. So in summary, once again, Schedule 22 begins in each report under the title Flows, and both facilities are operating within the rated capacity under that municipal drinking water license. Final slide, please. So that today concludes our presentation, and if you do have any questions whatsoever, we'd be happy to answer them or to get to Brent on the line if I can't.
I'm looking for hands. What do I see? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Natalie. Great report and, good sort of report card on the water systems, which is pretty important. I have a request. You did a very good job explaining the variance between what was budgeted for repairs and what was actual. And in fact, in one case, it was 100% over budget, in another it was 50% over budget. I wonder if you could provide that variance report to us in writing?
Through your worship, Councillor Armstrong, I can certainly look at putting something in writing that kind of gives a more detailed overview of where we saw the overages, certainly.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Lambshead, Deputy
No,
Mayor.
I'm good.
Windover.
That was a fantastic report. Thank you.
Natalie, keep in mind, when you were doing the preamble to start with, you were talking about projects that you manage on solid waste and whatever. We have a lot of quarries in this area, which you are well aware of, and some of them will soon be spent. Probably a few of them already are. Some of these projects that you're speaking of might very well fit into one of these spent quarries. So if anything ever crosses your desk, let our economic development person know about this, and we can maybe follow up on it.
Certainly.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Staff, anybody questions? Okay, thank you very much. Maybe we'll see you next week. Councilor Armstrong.
Yes.
Motion to receive the report?
Yes. And do we have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion is carried.
Have a great day.
You too. We'll now have a presentation from Christina Zardo, Manager of Municipal Solutions, Food Cycle Science regarding the Food Cycle On-Site Organics Diversion Program update. Please unmute your audio and share your camera and make your presentation. You also will have 20 minutes. If council will hold your question, we would appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council, and staff. Happy to be here to provide a program update for you on the Food Cycler pilot project that we ran. I think we're on the last slide of my presentation. I'm wondering if we could go up to the beginning. That's perfect. Thanks so much to the clerk. I'll just let you know when to move on to the next slide. So we'll go to page 2. All right, so I probably don't need to tell you too much about us, but 2021 was a big year for food cycle science. So I wanted to provide a couple quick updates for you. Of course, we're a Canadian clean tech company. We're based out of Ottawa, and we're 100% focused on providing food waste diversion solutions using our technology. In 2021, we were awarded semi-finalists of Impact Canada's Food Waste Reduction Challenge, which some of that funding was used to support your pilot program. We were also selected as one of 2021's Deloitte Fast 50 Clean Tech Award winners, number 81 on Globe and Mail's Canada's Top Growing Companies. And in addition to that, I think the biggest difference in 2021, if we want to move to the next slide, is we now have a total of 36 Canadian municipal partnerships signed on to a food cycler program. So since the date that I provided this presentation, we've had 2 more sign up. And I'd like to outline that when we started the pilot program with Trent Lakes, you were just the 9th in Canada to pilot this solution. And so we wanted to acknowledge and thank you for your willingness to trial an innovative solution to the longstanding problem that is food waste. It really served as kind of a spark plug to get this going in Canada, and we appreciate that from your behalf. And we'll go to the next slide. So with support from Impact Canada's funding through the Food Waste Reduction Challenge, a pilot program was launched in Trent Lakes that included 134 participating households receiving a food cycler. There were 150 that were distributed, but the pilot itself was based on 134 households. The net cost to the town for this program was just over $16,000, and that includes shipping. The pilot was run from November 2021 to January of this year. And the way it worked is 134 households received the food cycler, and they tracked their usage for 12 weeks. And then they provided their responses and tracking data into a survey at the end, so that we got some great feedback and data to provide to you, which we'll go through today. And then I can't proceed any further without commenting that Chelsea ran a very successful program and was a pleasure to deal with all the way through. So thank you very much for your contribution to the successful program. And we'll go to the next slide, please. So when we administered the survey, we received 114 responses out of 134 participants, so an 85% response rate, which is quite good and basically leads us to believe that the data that we're getting and the feedback is representative of the average user of this program. And when we asked these participants, how important is greenhouse gas reduction to you? They said that it was important to them on a scale of 8.8 out of 10. And for waste reduction, that's important to them on a scale of 9.5 out of 10. So these are very important factors in your community. And when we asked, where does your food waste currently go? A large portion said it goes right into the garbage. And then we had a mix of people using composting options. And some of them did it all year round, about 20%, which is fantastic. But others said that they only did it seasonally. Next slide. And when we asked to those who did not use some kind of at-home composting system, why is that? The overwhelming majority mentioned that there were concerns about bears and pests and other vermin, which is quite common. And then there were a variety of other issues that prevented people from using this, such as odors, don't know how, too labor intensive, etc. Next slide, please. When we polled whether participants were permanent or seasonal residents, about 75% of participants in this pilot were permanent residents, 21% seasonal, and 4% were other. And this is reflective of the time of year that we launched the pilot program in November. But what we determined is that about 88% of the food cyclers were used within the municipality during the pilot period. Next slide. Now, prior to receiving the food cycler, we wanted to know if people were using the Buckhorn Moloch system for organic waste. 18% of them were using it, 42% said they were not, and then 40% said that they were not aware that this was even an option. It could be people who are using different waste sites to dispose of their waste due to whatever is closest to them, and they didn't know that that was in Buckhorn. And when we asked for those that were using it, will you continue to use the Moloch system? 33% said yes, but less than before. 56% said no, and then 11% said they weren't sure yet. Next slide. So here's some pretty good data that we received back from when we asked about the tracking of cycles. The average user cycled the food cycler 4.56 times per week. And this is equivalent to 237 kilograms per year per household of diverted food waste, which equates to 36 metric tons per year from those 150 food cyclers in use. And for some context, the Moloch system in Buckhorn diverted about 59 metric ton in 2021. So there's a very good comparison there that 150 food cyclers is slightly over half of what Buckhorn is doing all year long. And we estimate that the annual potential diversion is actually closer to about 300 kilograms per year per household, because there is some seasonality to generation of food waste. And so we think that with some data in the summer and based on some other pilots that we've done, this 237 that we're reporting is actually in reality a little bit higher than that. And next slide, please. When we asked users, did increased awareness of food waste motivate you to waste less food? The overwhelming majority said that it did. And this speaks to the kind of qualitative versus quantitative results that we get from people using the food cycler. When you're managing this yourself at home, you've become more aware of how much you're wasting in the first place. And we always say that the most effective waste diversion strategy is to not generate any in the first place. So there is that kind of habit component, that awareness that comes with this program that's really hard to put into numbers, but it is a value that this provides as well. And next slide, please. So when we asked whether participants reduce their monthly garbage production as a result of using the food cycler, 83% of users reported a notable reduction of monthly waste generation by at least one bag, in some cases more than 3. And 43% reported that they're now making fewer weekly trips to the waste site. Next slide, please. When we asked if there were increased electricity costs that were noticed from using the food cycler, only 7% of people said yes, and the rest said either no or I'm not sure. And this indicates that increased electricity costs are either negligible or acceptable. Next slide. Now, when we asked if the municipality offered a food cycler to residents at no cost as part of a diversion program community-wide, do you think your friends, neighbors, family in the community would participate? 73% of people said yes. 27% of people said they weren't sure, but nobody said no. And I'll go to the next slide. Despite a little bit of hesitation of whether they would recommend it, or sorry, whether their friends and family would use it, they would still recommend it to others. About 95% of people said that they would. Only 2%, which I think represented one person, said no, and a few people said that they weren't sure. So a highly recommended program nonetheless. We'll go to the next slide. When we asked if the food cycler was big enough for a capacity of waste generated at home, 58% of people wished that it was bigger, either 1.5 to 2.5 times bigger. So some considerations here are you can use a second bucket to essentially double your capacity, fill one up while the other one is cycling and just swap them out. Makes for a really clean process as well. The other is that you could consider our new model, which is coming out late this year, that has 2 times the capacity, so a 5-liter unit. And if when information is available on that, we'll certainly provide it to the municipality. Next slide. Now, when we asked, will you continue using the food cycler after this pilot? 99% of people will continue using, enjoying, and diverting their food waste using the technology. And there was one person who said that they wouldn't. Next slide. And when we asked for a rating of the overall user experience for the pilot project, we received a very generous overall rating of 4.77 out of 5 stars. And this is pretty consistent with what we're seeing in all of our other pilot projects, and also consistent when you look at our consumer ratings on Vitamix and Amazon for the product. Next slide. Now, when we asked if a municipal program was not available, would you consider purchasing a food cycler? Most people said that they would, but only if there was a municipal rebate that brought the cost to $150 or less. So that what that means is that the cost subsidy model that we used to develop this program was well received and accepted by the majority of the users. Next slide, please. Now, I just wanted to provide some comments that we received from the survey. And I'll start with some that are a little bit more on the constructive side so that you can see, both sides of this, and this doesn't appear as though there's any bias. There were several comments which we alluded to before, is that they loved it, but they wish it was bigger. They just wish there was more capacity. When someone said, we found that the food cycler was a bit small, especially when preparing vegetables, and occasionally put overflow in the city green bin program. This was someone who I guess lived in a big city that had this available to them. We had someone who said, happy with the results, but I'll continue to use the outdoor composter when we have large amounts. So this also speaks to the capacity. Somebody said that their bucket arms jammed, and eventually we sent a replacement at no cost. So there was an issue there that was quickly rectified, but the user manual could have been more specific, and point well taken. But we'll go to the next slide. So here are some of the positive comments we received, and there were many to choose from, so this is just the sample, but many people expressed gratitude to Trent Lakes for giving them the opportunity to participate, and felt that it was a very worthwhile program. I would say that in summary, this was an overwhelmingly successful initiative and achieved many of the goals that it set out to do. And the results of the survey indicate that this would be a welcome solution to food waste in the community. So I want to take the time to present some options for what might come next. If we can go to the next slide, please. So I'll just provide an overview of some of the options that are out there that other municipalities are exploring. The first one is having the food cycler as a full-scale municipal food waste solution. We're doing this in the city of Nelson in BC, where they're putting a food cycler in every home in their city of 10,000 people. This would effectively divert, up to 100% of residential food waste from landfill, and it would be a taxpayer-funded municipal program. Another option is a partial food waste solution. So sometimes what we see is that, this program is very popular and has high participation rates, but maybe it's not for everyone. They like their backyard composter. They simply, won't learn new technology. And so what you can do is roll this out to only households that will use it. So pay for what you use type of model. We're considering this in Hornpain, Ontario, where it was a very well-received program, but there was even more hesitation about whether everyone would use it. So we're looking at rolling it out to about 50 to 60% of households there. And then the last option here, which is our recommended option for you, is to do another pilot in the summer. And what this will do is showcase seasonality of waste generation habits. You'll gather further data from a larger sample size and continue to divert more food waste. Next slide, please. So some assumptions that we'll make here is that based on the pilot results, there is significant interest in the community, but 100% participation may not be realistic. And the second pilot to showcase that seasonality might be worthwhile. In addition to that, residents would be less likely to participate if they are to pay more than $150 out of pocket. So when we make a recommendation in a later agenda item with Chelsea, and I think it's 10.1.1, we'll see that we've recommended a second pilot program involving 250 units to be launched in the summer. Some of the benefits here are, of course, less bears, raccoons, other pests, operational efficiencies at your various waste sites with less tonnage, more awareness around waste and habits, waste diversion. So when we look at the 150 food cyclers that are currently out there, plus 250 more, you'd have 400 households participating. We would get an estimated 120 metric tons of diverted waste for those. And again, comparing that to the MOLOC system that's in use, it would result in about twice the amount of food waste being diverted. And of course, greenhouse gas reductions associated with this. You're driving to the waste sites less, you have less food waste in landfills creating methane. So the greenhouse gas reduction is significant. The last thing is that would be an opportunity to showcase Trent Lakes further as an environmental innovator and leader in Canada. Last slide. So that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions about the program or questions about the recommendation to proceed with the summer pilot, I can answer those for you right now. And thank you once again for having me today.
Thank you. I'm looking for hands. Councillor Lambshead.
More of a comment than a question. I think it's quite amazing that when you seem to get the food recycler, you actually produce less because you pay attention to your food waste. So it's a win-win for everyone. You're paying less money on food and you're wasting less food. And you're recycling the food that you do waste. Fantastic.
Certainly. Yeah. Thank you for that comment. I agree completely. And with the cost of groceries these days, it's even more important to, buy less in the first place if it's just going to end up in waste.
Anyone else? I'm certainly in agreement with a pilot program for the summer, because I can see this being a huge benefit to cottages, to seasonal people, especially when there's concerned about leaving garbage. They can set this thing up before they leave, and by the time they get home, everything is done for them. Councillor Lambshead?
Yeah, I just had one further comment there about the size of them. That is a bit of a concern because it seems even in my own household, in the summertime, you do tend to purchase more food and consume more food, and so you result in a little bit more waste. I mean, we recycle almost everything. We have composter, we have a digester, we do that, but the size of this unit might be a little problematic.
Yes.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Lamb said you made me think of something. Will those larger capacity units be available if we were to proceed with the summer pilot here in Trent Lakes?
They wouldn't be available as of the summer. They'll be available as of November, December of this year. So certainly something we could consider as a next step. And with the summer pilot, what we could also consider doing is providing buckets, spare buckets to everyone to double their capacity, given the overwhelming feedback there.
Thank you.
Councillor Franzen?
Yeah, just a question. Do you have any idea what that larger unit would cost?
We don't have any municipal pricing established yet, but it will be in the range of 400 to 500 per unit.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I'd like to have a motion to receive that presentation. Deputy Mayor Windover, and seconded by Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Motion is carried. And thank you again. What a great project.
Thank you once again. Have a wonderful afternoon.
A big thank you to Chelsea for that too, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Yes, absolutely. That's been her baby right from the beginning. We'll now have a delegation from Harold Drew regarding an unopened road allowance purchase application. Please unmute your audio or show your camera and make your presentation. You will have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You there, Mr. Drew?
Good afternoon. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to explain here what I'm trying to do. I take it that you guys have already received the report to you relating to what I'm going to do here, correct?
Yes.
Now, do I understand that nobody's going to read this out now?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think anybody's gonna
All right
read
then.
it. No, go ahead, sir.
Okay, very good. I'll first off, let me ask then, gee, that kind of throws me for a loop here because I thought we were going to read the report. But having said that, I'll just carry on and hopefully I can deal with any questions as we go along. Firstly, let me say that my property, for those of you who may be familiar with the area, my property is on the east shore as you travel from Little Bald Lake into Big Bald Lake. I think it's a fairly visible property. It's a fairly large posted beam home, and we're the ones with the log boathouse. Just a little bit of background information here. In 1942, the previous owners of my property skated around the lake, and they stopped on our shoreline to have a picnic lunch. It was at that time that they decided to purchase the land, which was owned by the Quaker Oats family. The price that they paid for the lot was $2. However, the deal was that they had to build a road into the lot. And as Ken McDuffie, the previous owner, explained to me, it cost him about $5,000 in 1942 to build the road into the lot, and that was probably commensurate with the value of the lot at that time. My wife and I purchased the property in 1988 after 2 years of negotiating with Ken. At that time, there was a survey available that was done in 1942, but the survey had a lot more emphasis on the right of way to get to the land rather than the lot itself. It was the year 2000 before we had the property surveyed. Prior to that time, we always thought that we owned the entire point of land. After all, there was 3 cabins on the shoreline going up the Bald Lake Narrows, and there was trails connecting to the various cabins. Do you guys have in front of you now a map? Are you seeing that? Oh, perfect. Okay, so that's very good, because that map shows you just what I'm talking about here. Commencing in 2004, excuse me, we constructed our current home. And especially after completing the rather large house and fairly extensive landscaping, it always appeared to us as if the property wasn't properly balanced. More of the property, it doesn't show where our home is on that map, but we're closer to number 1 on the map, excuse me, than we are to the other shoreline. Excuse me one moment. So we decided to put an offer to purchase the road allowance. It turns out that that would be a long and tedious process to educate myself, and almost everything was different than what I thought. There's many challenges along the way. For instance, it took 6 months just to figure out who owned this sliver of land. The sliver of land that I'm referring to is the number 2 and number 3 pieces. Excuse me once again. It was obvious to me that there was no point in me purchasing lots 2 and 3 if I couldn't also acquire lot 1. They had to go hand in hand. There was no point in buying just one of them. It turns out that the sliver of land was actually what's known as a forfeited corporate property. That's as a result of a development company from Florida, actually, who developed the lands north of my property, which would be those running straight north on Northern Avenue. This sliver of land was essentially left over, and it had no value, so it was simply forgotten. The Subcot Development Corporation was dissolved in 1994, and these types of lands are administered by the Ministry of Consumer and Corporate Affairs through the Public Trustee and Guardian's Office. Once all the documentation was prepared and submitted, my offer to purchase that portion, lots 2 and 3, was approved on March 24th of this year. They continue to be doing their due diligence, and they also have to do a duty to consult with the Indigenous peoples. However, I'm advised that it appears there should be no obstruction, and they feel I'll be able to transfer the ownership as early as the summer. I'm encouraged by this progress, of course. However, once again, there's no value to me owning the sliver of land if I can't be assured that I would be able to purchase the road allowance. Now, the road allowance the purchase rather of the road allowance is contrary to a current bylaw that you guys have in your municipality. That bylaw is number 2011-55. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but let me just read it to you regardless. Quote, road allowances that provide access to water will be retained in public ownership and available to the public. And that's exactly the reason that I ran into the original resistance to purchase the road allowance. However, when I looked at it a little bit further, I found out that there was a Schedule A attached to the bylaw, which includes 2 important qualifiers. Quote, council must be satisfied that there is adequate alternate access to the water body in proximity to the road allowance to be closed. Also, and most importantly, item number 5 says, the exchange of other property to provide appropriate land or water access can be considered. From these two very important criteria, my wife suggested the idea of making a trade. So from this map, this is what I'm attempting to accomplish. I will purchase from the public guardian and trustee's office the complete sliver of land, being parts 2 and parts 3. In exchange for this, council agrees to sell me part number 1, that's being the road allowance. It's as if the Schedule A to bylaw 2011-55 was almost written with this deal in mind. I see it as a win-win situation for everyone. The township is essentially trading 66 feet of shoreline for approximately 150 feet of shoreline at location number 3. As a further bonus, this acquired land, as you can see on the map, abuts the convergence of 3 or all of the other road allowances in the area. I feel the property, my property, deserves to be balanced with our home. We intend to pass it down to the next generations, and this acquisition will enhance our lot. I'm asking council to support the sale of the unopened road allowance today. I look forward to answering any questions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do I see hands? No, do I see? Okay, Councillor Lamphead.
Well, just to be straight, you're going to orchestrate purchasing 2 and 3 from whoever owns it now. And then you're going to give the municipality of Trent Lakes section 3, provided we get organized to get you to close section 1.
Absolutely, that is 100% correct. That's exactly what I'm after. It just makes good sense. It gives me what I want, and I think it gives the township exactly in keeping with what the Schedule A to the bylaw that was prepared, I guess, sometime after 2011.
Is that unopened allowance, is it owned by the municipality now, or is it private ownership?
I'm sorry, the sliver of land?
No, the unopened road allowance now. It's there that services all those lots. Is that owned by the municipality?
I'm sorry, Mayor Clarkson, are you referring to the road allowance that goes down Northern Avenue?
Yes.
Okay, that is where Northern Avenue is located, yes. And it feeds those lots.
The road allowance that's behind 2 and 3.
Oh, yes. Okay. The road allowance behind 2 and 3 is the road allowance that cuts down to my shoreline. So it is currently an unopened road allowance. And, oh, I see, perhaps what you're asking. So I'm only interested in purchasing the portion of the road allowance that lines up with my northern boundary of my property. So that's why the line goes straight through there. So in the end, when all of this is done, if I'm approved by council to make this deal, I will own my existing lot plus number 1 plus number 2, and I will trade to you, relinquish to you, parcel number 3.
Okay, do we have any more suggestions here, or do we refer this to staff? Yes, Jesse.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, there is I have a report on the agenda for item 10.7.1. So if there's no further questions for Harold, you can make your decision later on in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
I understand.
Thank
So
you, Mr.
can I ask, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask then, is that when you would read the report?
That's correct, Harold.
Okay, very good. I understand. Okay, I think that that completes everything that I wanted to present, and thank you once again for your time.
Thank you. Can we have a motion to receive this report? Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? The motion is carried. Okay, staff reports on Public Works. Chelsea.
Thank you, Mayor Clarkson. And, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thank you and through you. So this report is regarding the expansion of the Food Cycler pilot program. As Christina from Food Cycle Science outlined in her presentation earlier, this program has been an incredible success and a great opportunity for residents to reduce their food waste. There has been an overwhelming demand for additional food cycler units. Therefore, staff are recommending the expansion of the food cycler program and the purchase of 250 additional food cycler units to be drawn from service delivery funds. This initiative has been very well received, and the program will continue to have several benefits for the municipality as well as our residents. I would be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
I'm looking for hands.
So,
And as Councillor Lambs had said, you deserve a big pat in the back.
Yep.
is,
I think you want a motion now to
hey,
proceed. So
hi.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want, so that means that they have at $400 a piece, 200 of them?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, to you, Deputy Mayor Windover. The costing is in the financial implications within my report. I believe the $400 that you may be referring to was the larger unit that Christina mentioned could be the cost, but they don't have that finalized yet on their end.
Okay,
My
good,
report
thanks.
is regarding the unit that we sold to residents in the initial pilot program, and this is just expanding that program to offer the same units to residents at the proposed cost of $169.50, which would include HST.
Okay, thank you very much, yeah.
Councillor Franson, did I see your hand?
Yep, I'd be willing to make a motion at this time that council approve the expansion of the Food Cycler pilot program in partnership with Food Cycle Science, utilizing the Food Cycle Science Food Cycler technology, and further that council approve a municipal subsidy purchase of 250 additional Food Cycler units to be drawn from the service delivery funds.
Councillor Armstrong?
I would second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? That is carried. Chelsea, what's the expected delivery on this? Is there a?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson. In speaking with Christina, we would hope to get the units in May. So run hopefully between May and June, and then run the program as soon as possible after that. So as soon as we have some confirmed dates for delivery, then we will be able to finalize when this project would start. But it is hoped to run at the very latest July, August, and September for the 12-week pilot program.
Now, this is obviously in the minutes of the meeting today. Are you going to accept people wanting to go on a waiting list between now and when you first get them?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, staff can definitely take that into consideration. The way that we ran the program the first time worked really well and was very successful, where we promoted the program. However, the registration link or the survey link did not go live until a certain date. So I would like to suggest that we follow that same process because it did work so well the first time. However, upon council's approval here, we will start to promote that this program will be coming back and expanded, and there will be an opportunity for residents to purchase the unit.
Perfect. Carol, did I see a hand?
No, I thought Councillor Lambs had his hand up earlier. But it was not.
Okay.
I did. It was just more of a comment. I mean, this is nice to have this during the summer when we have a fairly large expansion of our population, so we might capture a better image of how much this really does work.
Absolutely, yes. I think it will be great to have that data as well. And I would also just like to thank Council for your kind comments that you have made. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we have a first and seconder, all in favor? That motion is carried.
We've already done it.
Okay, seasonal hard bulky plastic recycling. That's been anxiously awaited also.
Thank you, Mayor Clarkson, and through you. So this report is regarding a seasonal hard/bulky plastic recycling program. The 2022 Public Works Work Plan identified a Q1 initiative of researching opportunities for a seasonal hard plastics recycling program. Staff have been successful with this and have received pricing in order to offer a 2022 seasonal bulky hard plastic recycling program with GFL Environmental. Staff are recommending to Council a seasonal hard plastics recycling program at all 4 transfer stations that would run from May to October, and that this program also be funded through service delivery funds.
Okay. Also, what about the, not the goodbye room, but the reuse room? Are they going to be opened shortly, or do we know that yet?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, the reuse centers will be opening again. Staff are just finalizing some dates, but we are suggesting that the reuse centers will open on the day that we transition to summer hours, which would be April 15th. At this time, we've just been waiting for the snow to melt a little bit more and things to dry up a little bit, and just getting the sheds organized because they are used in the winter for some tools and stuff on site.
Okay. Councillor Lambshead, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I just think this is a great program, and I was willing to make a motion to receive the report and to approve the seasonal hard plastic, bulk plastic recycling program for all 4 stations, which is important to me that we have all 4.
Yeah.
And to prove the costs associated with the bulk plastic recycling program to be drawn from the service delivery reserve funds.
Thank you. Well said. And the seconder would be Councillor Armstrong. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, Evan Rieger, Director of Public Works, traffic bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Clarkson. Through you, Mayor, to members of council. I'd just like to first comment on both the Chelsea's reports there. I think it's just absolutely fantastic, the initiative that she takes, especially that bulky plastic program. It was a program that's been offered by the county in the past, and unfortunately they haven't continued it, but we've heard from residents that they do appreciate that program. So Chelsea has been working very hard to get that program and calling multiple people to find out where we can get that. So I'm very excited that we can offer that program and do appreciate all the council's support. Anyways, to get into my report here, my report is a result of the motion at the December 21st, 2021 regular council meeting. This was in response to the request of implementing a community safety zone at Galway Road at the Galway Hall. And from that, in addition, was to create a traffic bylaw. The purpose of the traffic bylaw is to formalize all the speed limits and various traffic regulations within the township. When I first started at the township that the speed limit bylaws were done in piecemeals and they weren't collected in one clean spot. So the process was here to review the old past bylaws to ensure that I didn't miss any of those, combine them into one formal bylaw, and then also make a couple of changes which are noted in the report there. The one big change you may notice is on Galway Road itself is dropping the speed limit to 40 kilometers per hour. That's in relation with the community safety zones to really highlight to the people that they need to slow down. I believe the 40 kilometer an hour speed limits really jump out to people because you don't see them unless they're in residential areas. So they will really know to hopefully slow down, as well as in the other areas. We have received some concerns on the Moon Line with regards to speeding, and we've had some incidents over the winter with the snowmobile club in those roads as well. So the speed limits of these roads are also enforced through the snowmobiles as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, have we got questions for everyone? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Evan. I think this is a great idea to get this formalized and so it can be enforceable. So appreciate your doing that. It was a lot of work, I think, to figure out speed limits, postings everywhere that we have. So good job on that. Just a question on the heavy vehicle restriction on Adam and Eve Road. I guess first, what's a heavy vehicle? And secondly, what's the rationale for having it in that location? And should we be looking at other areas where we should have heavy vehicle restrictions?
Thank you, Councilor Armstrong. Through you, Mayor, to Councilor Armstrong. The heavy restriction vehicle is defined within the defined within the Highway Traffic Act, and it's a large truck, two axles, and it speaks to the amount of weight per ton of axle. So I think it's 5,000. I'm not sure for specifically, but when it comes to Adam and Eve Road, that was a road that was already posted as a no heavy vehicle road. So I had just, because it was already in place, I had just continued that one on. I would definitely be open to looking at other areas, but that was one that had already been implemented. And my assumption with that would be trying to limit the trucks that would be going to Buckhorn Sand and Gravel from cutting through Adam and Eve to Melody Bay Road and forcing them to go all the way to Lakehurst and Melody Bay Road and come down that way. So I do believe that's probably why that was put in place in that area.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And that makes sense because I think that's what you're trying to do is just bring together all of the existing restrictions that there were. I don't want to create work, but I'll just plant the seed that maybe that might be something we want to look at into the future of other roads, municipal small roads that might benefit from a heavy vehicle restriction.
Absolutely. And I think for you, Mayor, I think that's also why I put in that note at the end of the report is that we will review this bylaw on a yearly basis so that we can address any concerns, anything we notice through the summer, different times a month, or whether it's even with snow removal and we're finding issues there, we can sort of address that once a year and sort of bring to you all the issues. And absolutely, it's a living document. So if there's people have other concerns about certain areas, we would definitely look into that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so did we have a motion to receive that? I don't think we have yet. Deputy Mayor Lindholm?
Yeah.
Motion to receive?
So, yes.
Seconder? Seconder?
I'll second the motion if it's to receive it and approve the proposed traffic bylaw, which will assist in regulating traffic within the municipality of Trent Lakes.
Yes.
That's right, yeah.
The ask. Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, Dylan, Buckhorn Sports Pad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You have before you my report, follow-up from the resolution at the March 22nd regular council meeting where council requested that staff report back on financial implications of the minimum life safety requirements necessary to bring the Buckhorn Sports Pad into compliance with the Ontario Building Code. So the CBO, Barb and I and Donna, we had some chats about this, and I've presented a chart there of the the requirements that we believe would bring us into a state to be able to use this as it was originally intended, as a sports pad. That those remedies include adding emergency exit lighting. Staff have a quote in hand to the tune of approximately $9,000. Those are for outdoor cold weather rated emergency exit lights. I did have a discussion with the CBO and the fire chief regarding a layout with that, so we're all good on that. So if we can get council approval to proceed with that, we can draw those funds from the sports pad reserve. Additional requirements that we would put into place is limiting the facility capacity to 100 people, and that's in keeping with adding one additional portable washroom, which is derived from the building code. Two washrooms, typically provides for an occupancy of 100. This also keeps it below the threshold for fire protection, being sprinklers and a fire alarm system. As well, we would strive to avoid high-risk events such as dances, events with alcohol, and dinners in this facility. And then just the additional portable washroom. Approximately 2/3 of the funds for that additional washroom would already be included in the 2022 budget, with the remainder likely being able to be absorbed through surplus in the 2022 budget.
Thank you. Have we got questions? I have a couple of questions. I am concerned in the limiting of people, and I mean not the limiting of people. I can understand that, but in terms of not having dances or dinners or whatever, because I don't see that facility as being any different than any of the other community centers. And I wonder why it is separate, because those are areas that can be used by the community. We've been used successfully in that situation before. So I know this, the story is, well, the codes were different when it was done, but the codes were different for all of the community centers. Some of them have been totally rebuilt, other ones get refurbished along the way. But while the refurbishing was taking place, there was no such thing as saying, well, you can't do this and you can't do that because the codes have changed. So I wonder why the strictness is being applied to the sports bed. Yes, Jessica.
Yeah, I was just going to say Barb's on the line. I think she wants to speak.
Yep, through you, Mayor Clarkson, I can speak to that. So I won't say the codes have not changed in the regard of occupancy, fire safety, exiting requirements and things like that. Code has not changed. What has taken place here is this structure has been put together piece by piece by piece. And there has been a number of CBOs through this process. All have different how they read the code, I guess. They all look at it a little bit differently, but the bottom line is that there is some evidence in the file that it was recorded that about the population that was using the building, and that it was a fire, like a life safety situation. So yes, it has been used that way. Should it have been? My opinion is no. Once you hit a certain amount of people, you are required to sprinkler the building. That was identified in the file. Once you hit a certain amount of people, you are required to install a fire alarm system. Washrooms should have been part of the design when the walls went up around it. So, the structure is there. Should it be used for big events? Without making it meet today's codes, I say that no, it should not be. And that's where we come up with limiting the occupancy based on the washroom facilities that we're providing through the porta potties, which is just kind of that's not even to code, but at least we're kind of trying to work with what you have there and give you some options to be able to have some people use that facility through the porta potties. So you've kind of come into a point, in my opinion, you've come to a point in time where you have this structure. It doesn't meet the code requirements for the use that you would like to use it for bigger events. And if that's the plan going forward, that you want to use this facility for bigger events, then you are going to have to step up and do something with the building.
Yeah,
Kind of the bearer bad news, I know, but.
I have no question or no problems with the exits and fire whatever. I have no issues with any of those. But I don't see any difference between a sprinkler system in there or a sprinkler system in any of the halls, because the halls can all hold 100+, and there's certainly no sprinkler systems or any additional equipment in any of those. So I wonder why it has been singled out.
Well,
Anyway,
as I say, this building has been put together piecemeal, basically. And every time you did something to the building, it should have triggered something to happen. I can't go back in time and tell you why those things didn't happen because I wasn't here. But you have kind of created a situation where you have a structure that is limiting in its use and its capacity by virtue of what it is today and more by virtue of what it's lacking today.
okay, have we any other questions? Councillor Franzen, did I see your hand?
I have a comment. I believe this is a good report, and I'm willing to move the recommendations from this committee.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I would second the motion to receive the report, approve the remedial work and washroom using funds from the Sports Pad Reserve, as well as supporting the implementation for an application on organized events and restrictions. With a comment, and the comment is, yes, this needs to be done. We're playing catch up here. The sooner the better. And, you know, clearly we as a municipal organization need to be role modeling our enforcement of building code requirements.
Okay. Councillor Franzen, do I see your hand?
Yeah, just one further comment. If this motion passes, can it be passed on to the BCC so they're aware of the implications of this motion?
Well, I think the minutes of the meetings are out there. I don't know that they need any specific.
No, but I think it should be submitted directly to the BCC because it is on their property.
Well, that's up to staff or anybody else that wants to make. Do you want to add that to your motion?
Yes, I'll add that to the motion.
Are you okay with that, Carol?
I'm fine with it.
All in favor? And I want a recorded vote for this.
Are you ready for the vote?
Sure.
Councillor Clarkson, are you in favor?
No.
Councillor Franzen?
Yes.
Councillor Lansett?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Now, fire and emergency services, we don't have a report today. Building and planning, Barbara, please. And this is a Building Code Act annual report.
So this is a report that is required to be generated on a yearly basis as per the Ontario Building Code Act and the regulations of the Ontario Building Code. And basically what this report does is it just gives, it breaks down the cost to run the department, direct cost and indirect cost. And it's basically just putting notice to the world how our building department operated for the year 2021.
Do we have questions from staff? And if not, a motion to accept this report? Or receive?
Yeah, a motion to receive the report and direct staff to make the annual report of building permit fees available to the public.
Thank you very much. And a seconder. Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion has carried. Okay, now we're looking for, Barbara, back to you again, delegation for Lisa Henry, 3458 County Road 507 development charge.
Okay, so Ms. Henry contacted our department about purchasing a property. This particular property did have a demolition permit issued for a dwelling. That permit was issued on October the 28th, 2016, and the demolition permit has been completed. Now there is a foundation still out there, but that's, you know, it's not, I wouldn't say it's typical, but it happens often that they will leave the foundation because typically they'll just bury it. So she had made contact with us to ask us about the fees associated with getting permits and things like that. We had indicated to her about the development charges. So she is formally asking for the development charges to be waived. I'm just going to read out a document that was sent to Councillor Lambshead. This was Tuesday, April the 5th, 2022, to the Council of the Municipality of Trent Lakes, re property 3459, County Road 507. We purchased the property in 1983. This was the, these are the people that owned the property prior to Lisa Henry. We purchased the property in 1983. It was a separated existing lot at that time. It has a legal driveway installed by the Provincial Roads Department. As per the address, it is County Road. It is on County Road 507. It does not need more access funded by the municipality. So what other development fees are there? Question mark. We obtained the demolition permit, but there was no mention of a time limit to rebuild or development fees. Then COVID hit. On the news, we in the southern regions of the province were repeatedly told not to go north so as not to overwhelm the hospitals there if we got COVID. If nothing else, then the deadline for the building permit with no development fees should be granted to this property for 2 years of COVID. Bernadette and Robert Plug. So my recommendation, and I'm going to stand by my recommendation because it's my job to enforce the rules and the bylaws that I have before me, is to not waive the development charges. We have 4 development charges bylaws now that we have to deal with. We have the township, we have the county, we have the Catholic School Board, and we have the Pine Ridge School Board. And they all have the same language. That's that you have a certain time to rebuild, and if you don't rebuild within that time frame, development charges shall be applied to you at the time that the building permit is issued. So the county and the township timeline is 5 years. So this demolition permit ran out on October the 28th, 2021. The new Catholic and public school boards have 2-year timelines. So if you don't build within 2 years, you are paying development charges. To me, this is a slippery slope. If we grant this to one person, we will be approached by many probably in this situation. So my recommendation is to not waive the development charges because they are past the 5-year mark, and that the current development charges will be applicable to the permit when and if she obtains one.
Okay, questions? Councillor Lambshead.
Just wondering when the demolition permit was finalized. What would be the date?
I would have to look that up. I'm sorry, I don't have that information handy.
2021, 5 years?
I think that's when it was applied for.
Probably 16.
It was applied in 16, yeah.
So 5 years would be 2021. And they're claiming they couldn't get up because of COVID. Now, Barb, if they had, if in fact that was the case, could they have contacted the township at that point and said they couldn't get up and got an extension at that point? Or did they just let it ride?
Well, I think that they didn't realize there was timelines in place in the bylaws and just felt that, you know, development charges wouldn't apply to the next person. The COVID comment really is not, to me, applicable because in my world, COVID did not affect our world. Residential, the only construction that was stopped during COVID was commercial and non-residential. So residential always continued. And in fact, we were busier during COVID years than we were in non-COVID years. So the COVID comment is not applicable to this situation, I don't believe.
Councillor Lambshead?
I know that our CBO has to follow the rules and regulations in the development charge bylaws. But my view on this lot, and I think it's a pretty broadly accepted view, is that this is a developed lot. This has an existing driveway with a 911 sign. This has a septic tank and bed system on it. This has a foundation with proper footings and the block walls are just been pushed over. This has a supply of electricity that's been cut off by the previous owners during the demolition phase. This also has a supply of water to this lot. So to say it's undeveloped, I don't think it's correct. I think this is a developed lot. They just want to rebuild the house that was tore down with a demolition permit.
Okay, comment? Don't everybody speak at once.
I can continue. I mean, I realize that this doesn't fit the exact mold of the development charge bylaw, but there are extenuating circumstances. There are issues that they maybe couldn't get here. I don't think that their plan was to develop the property. I think they demolished the building because of health and safety reasons. Otherwise, they would have just left the building there and sold it with the old dilapidated building on it. I don't think they realized that demolishing the building could have initiated the next step of development charge. So I think it was just a lack of communication with the plug people and our building department at that time, 7 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever it was.
So Barb, do we have the ability then to waive these as a council?
Yes, council can waive the fee if they wish. I'm just still going to stand by my recommendation because it's my job to enforce bylaws, but council does have that prerogative to waive it if they wish. I will just caution you that if you do decide to waive them, you could be asked to do this again. And just like a planning application though, everything is based on its own merits. You know, Councillor Lambshead has made some good points to consider. So you do have that option if you wish.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Barb. Personally, I would be very uncomfortable going against the recommendation of our CBO on this. And I don't like the precedent of council approving these exceptions. To me, these should be resolved at the staff level. And you know, we set a precedent once it comes to us and make a decision. I could be okay if this were something that were deferred to the Committee of Adjustments, if that's the kind of thing, which I think it is, that they deal with as exceptions to requirements. But if it were council, I would have to support our seat.
Okay, Councillor Lambshead, do you want to make a motion or does anybody else want to have a comment?
If you're prepared to take my motion, I don't know that it'll get support, but I would prefer to go against our CBO has to tell us that because that is what it says in our bylaw. Sometimes we can deviate from the bylaw because it makes sense to do so for the residents of Trent Lakes. And I think this is one of the very few circumstances that we'll ever see this. I know of another one that we could certainly have come to us, but I would make a motion that we defer, or we whatever you want to call it, waive the development charge fees on this lot because I feel that it is already a developed lot in the municipality of Trent Lakes with a 911 address on it.
Can we get a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay. Would you, anybody want a recorded vote here?
Through you, Madam Mayor, could I just make one comment? I just want some just clarification that this is only going to be applicable to the township development charge. The county development charges still will be applied because they do not defer their fees. And we do have, as of yesterday, the 2 new school board DC fees that we do have to charge on new permits. So this will only be applicable to the township DC fee.
Jeez.
Well, I guess that's better than nothing.
That's right.
I would like a recorded vote, please.
Okay. So Councillor Lambshead, do you want to just?
Yeah. I think that it's a developed lot. I feel that charging a development fee on this lot is inappropriate at this time, even though it might say that in our bylaw. I just think that this was and is a developed lot because there is existing structures on that lot still.
So your motion is for the township to waive the
Yep.
fee.
Waive the $5,300 or whatever that is.
And you're comfortable with seconding that, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yeah.
Ready to vote? Councillor Armstrong, are you in favor?
No.
Mayor Clarkson?
Yes.
Councillor Franzen?
Yes.
Councillor Lanshead?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Windover?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
Okay. Now, trailer park zoning and enforcement. Back to you again, Barbara.
Okay, trailer parks. So through you, Madam Mayor, I was kind of warned about trailer parks when I first got here that this was going to be something we're going to have to deal with sooner than later. And through the permit process, this was kind of the trigger for this whole thing, was permit applications that were coming in the door were not meeting our current zoning bylaw. And once we got into the zoning bylaw absolutely does not fit our trailer parks.
Barbara, can I just hold you for a moment?
Sure.
Just don't think for the conflict of interest that brother and sister is a conflict. My question is whether or not I need to declare here, Barbara, because one of the resorts is owned by my brother. And my understanding is with conflict of interest, brother and sister doesn't.
Thank you. I really hate to do this, but Anne, sorry, could you verify in the NCIA, do you know what a direct pecuniary interest is? Again, it's
I have no pecuniary interest at all. I only wish.
Sorry, it is the member's obligation to declare it and be aware of when they have pecuniary interest or not.
If it's pecuniary, is it not a judgment call on the part of the counselor?
That is correct.
Did I say that right? If it's perceived conflict of interest, then isn't it a judgment call on the part of the counselor?
No, because of that.
Because perception's not in the code.
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm not on the
Through you, Jesse? Or pardon me, through you, Mayor Clarkson?
Yes.
The Municipal Conflict of Interest Act speaks to indirect pecuniary interest, and section 2, section 3 speaks to interest of certain relatives deemed that of the member. For the purpose of this act, the pecuniary interest direct or indirect of a parent or the spouse of any child of the member shall, if known to the member, be deemed to be also the pecuniary interest of the member. I apologize, I'm not sure that specifically addresses.
Siblings. Let's look at this today, and then I'll look into this further for the next meeting. And I just won't vote on anything here. Okay, go ahead, Barb.
Okay, so through you, Mayor Clarkson. So we have 20 trailer parks in the municipality. And there was 5 triggers that, for me, that prompted this report and to start a process to try to clean things up. So the number one was the permit applications that were coming in the door. Because the zoning is very specific about what you can do on the site, and that's the trailer site or the trailer park site, the lot coverage and the setbacks were the two biggies. So you can only have 24% lot coverage. So when you're dealing with a lot that's 30 feet by 50 feet or smaller, 24% of that is not a lot of square footage. And the big kicker was the side yard setback from, I call them imaginary lot lines, because they're not, they're like just little sites on a larger parcel. It was 3 meters, like that's 10 feet almost. So by the time you take almost 20 feet off of a 30-foot lot, you got a 10-foot trailer in the middle of the park. So I'm not sure where these provisions came from. They just don't suit what we have on the ground out there. Most of the applications do not conform to the current zoning bylaw, and thus permits cannot be issued. Number 3, the renewal applications are beginning to come into the municipality for parks. So this is kind of the perfect opportunity to dive into this. Number 4, a review of the sites on the GIS have determined that some of the parks have increased the number of lots without approvals through the municipality. There's one particular area where it looks like there's some trailers on municipal lands. And none of the trailer parks have registered site plan agreements on the municipality, with the municipality. My apologies. And the reality is that a lot of these parks are really, they're quite old. They were created with smaller lots because people parked travel trailers on them. Now they're trying to replace travel trailers with really large park models, which are eating up the lots. And then they want to have a deck, and then they want to have an attic room on top of the deck. And then you end up having a situation where you've got buildings on top of buildings. And if one goes up in flames, 10 of them are going to go up in flames. So it becomes a life safety issue as well. So I'm proposing to try to work with the trailer park owners and fix our zoning, which I think that is on us to do that. But in order to do that, we need to get on the ground and see what's out there, see what are there average lot sizes? Do we have to have 20 separate bylaws, or do we need 5 bylaws? Are most of the lots kind of one size, but there's a few anomalies that maybe we'll end up with just 2 or 3 different variations. We need to address like how they situate. Now, most of the applications that I'm seeing coming in through cloud permit, the trailers are always 12 inches off of one lot line, which makes sense to me because back in my previous world, I was lucky. I'm going to call it lucky now. I didn't think it was at the time, but that I was at the beginning of a process to create a trailer park. And instead of having setbacks to an imaginary lot line, we had setbacks between units, which makes more sense to me. It gives more latitude to where you can put things on the park site, but it sets distances between actual structures to deal with the fire aspect. So as part of the process to renew the applications, I think before it was just they paid the fee, they got their application. This time around, I would like to visit each of those sites. Matt and I would be going out. We would meet the park owner. We would do a walk around, see what's there, ask for some very specific statistics on their particular park. How many sites do you have? What's the average site size? Just get a feel for what's out there so we can come up with some good zoning information that's actually going to assist the park owners and assist the people wanting permits. As part of the process, we would be looking for some information on their septic systems. And I did actually, I know the MOE officer quite well. I did contact him to see if he could kind of give me a list of where he is at with a lot of the parks. Some of them he visited last year, some of them in 2017, some of them in 2012. I would say half of them on the list have some work to do that they were supposed to complete for the ministry, but has not been completed, which he's going to be chasing down this year. So I feel that this is just, I know it wasn't in our work plan, but this is an opportune time, given the time of the year, to fix this problem with the zoning, try to help the park owners bring their parks into compliance, have them go into a site plan agreement with the municipality so that we can control the numbers of sites and keep track of them that way. So I'm looking for council to support the report. I'm looking for council to support my request to amend the zoning bylaw, and I'm looking for council to support that the trailer parks enter into site plan agreements with the municipality.
Questions and comments, please. Councillor Franzen, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, Barb, I think you're taking on a lot of work. I support completely what you're doing. I think that we have to be in compliance wherever we can. So thank you very much for this report.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Barb. I agree with Councillor Franzen. This is work that needs to be done. My reservation, however, is that we had a backlog of planning applications and permits in the building and planning department, which we thought would not get resolved until probably October at the earliest. I want to make sure that we're not prolonging that backlog by taking on this additional work, and I don't see how we couldn't be. So while I support it, I think our number one priority is to address what's in our queue at the moment, give those priority, and then schedule this at a time when we have, dealt with those in a timely manner, because I don't think it's fair to keep all of those other people waiting longer than they need to. So again, I am completely supportive of this initiative, but I'm looking at workload and capacity. And from what I've heard previously, I don't think, we certainly don't have excess capacity. And so if we take this on, it's got to bump something else. And I'm not sure that I'm prepared to do that.
Anybody else? Councillor Lamson.
Unfortunately, that there's an overlap there. I think a lot of the permits that you have are for in the trailer park, so you can't eliminate the permit until you eliminate the issue. So I think some of this needs to be done, maybe not all of it, but any of the life safety stuff, yes, that should be. I mean, it's difficult to issue a permit when you can't issue the permit in the trailer park, and there might be 25 people that want to build something in a trailer park with a permit. I think we're in a kind of a catch-22. You need to do the due diligence of having a proper site plan on your trailer park, which I cannot believe they don't already have, because most of them, when they entered into all them agreements, showed some sort of site plan. But I think it's important to move on with this. I know you need to get through all the other permits first, but I think you should have some latitude to get to this.
I think as a township or municipality, I think we've got the highest number of trailer parks in the province. And with that comes a tremendous amount of economic, because they require absolutely everything. They don't open up one in the spring that they don't need plumbers, electricians. They're really, really good for economy. They go back, you're talking about when they had permits. Most of these trailer parks go back to the mid-50s. So it's not like it's, the only one I think that's anywhere new at all is Park Ridge, and that's because they basically bulldozed the other one down. But pretty much everything else has just, it's evolution that's taken it on. So I agree, there has to be a reasonable approach to these things, but the economic pressure that anything that's to doing with resorts or anything else right now is horrendous. So I think the cost of some of these things has got to be taken into consideration and balanced with the safety. And I know Barb can do this. She's not in the business of putting people out of business. But to try to bring all of these people into conformity with the evolution the way it is, I wouldn't want that job.
Yeah.
Councilor Armstrong?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, Barb, maybe I don't want to make assumptions because I'm not close enough to the operation, but perhaps you could comment on my comment about capacity and resources and your ability to absorb this, and whether or not that will impact the existing queue of permits. And, perhaps to Councillor Lambshead's point, is 50% of our backlog in trailer parks, that makes a difference. If it's only 10%, that sends a different message. So before any of us make assumptions, perhaps you can comment on that if you would.
Okay, so through you, Mayor Clarkson. So I do want to say that we've kind of put a temporary plan in place to deal with the immediate permit processes. Unfortunately, it involves planning. It would involve a variance. So it is going to, put people off for a few, couple months at least to go through a variance process in order to do what they want on their sites. But it is an avenue to go down in order to get to the point of building permit issuance. I would say it's not 50%. It is a small number of permits, but it was enough that it triggered a problem for me and the people that were making applications. I do want to say that I wasn't intending on taking this on without additional help, and we do have that extra position that we are going to fill, and in fact we're going to talk about that in closed session today. So my thought process is that there's going to be another body here to help with this process, and it's something that does have to be done. It's whether we get it all done this year, but at least we need to start it this year.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Then I would like to make a motion proposing that we defer this until we've had the conversation around staffing and resourcing the department before we approve taking on this initiative. I'm not against it. And again, great initiative, but I think we kind of have the cart before the horse here. Until we know that we have the resources to support it, I don't think we should be approving the initiative. So I will make a motion that we defer this report in motion to the next council meeting once we have further information on resourcing and staffing.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Okay, then, calling, yes. Councillor Franzen.
I'll second it.
Okay. Can I call for the vote, please? All in favor? That vote is carried. Okay. Donna, water budgets, please.
Great. Thank you, and through you. Subsequent to the, sorry.
Mayor Clarkson?
Yes.
I'm declaring a conflict on this.
Yes, that's right. And so we're just going to turn your camera off and.
Yep.
So thank you, and through you. Before you is the 2022 water budget. You will see in this budget that I'm recommending a 2022 rate of $1,400 for the Buckhorn Lake Estates water system and $995 for the Alpine Pirates Glen system. So that would be an increase of $75 for Buckhorn Lake Estates and $30 for the Alpine Pirates Glen. So I have provided historic rates for you in the report. And also wanted to let you know that there are now 318 properties on these systems. We did gain a user in 2021 at the Alpine Pirates Glen system, and that these systems, further to the report already given today by Aqua, both had a deficit in 2021, and the amount for Buckhorn Lake Estates was $21,001 and $1.18. And Alpine Pirates Glen, $54,361.87. So the reserve balances I have recorded there for you, $89,682.18 for Buckhorn Lake Estates, and there remains $156,886.04. So the increase in the budget for these water users, which are user pay systems, would result in $3.84 a day for those residing at Buckhorn Lake Estates and $2.73 a day for those at Alpine Pirates Glen.
Okay, I have a question for properties that rent for whatever reasons, whether they're renting short-term, long-term, or whatever. Do they pay extra for their water because they certainly use a tremendous amount of water? Is there any way to capture that? Because I hear from residents that they are really concerned that their water in the summer is in jeopardy because of the influx of people. So there isn't any metering.
Right. So thank you, and through you. We did have recent conversations with Aqua about that. The water system, it's a rarity now that it is a flat rate system. Actually, Evan attended a meeting. Evan's got a lot of knowledge on water, and we did have some good discussions with Aqua whether we should look at considering metering for these systems, because it would result potentially in less water being used and some water being conserved potentially now that isn't. We would have to look at the effect of that, because once again, it's a user pay system. Each of the owners would have to pay for the installation of a meter. So we are having discussions about that, but at this time, there is no way to have a separate rate for individual properties. Everybody pays the same, and there is a mechanism in place to allow people to water on even and odd days. So that's in place, but no, there isn't a way to property specific charge additional funds.
So Donna, would it be possible, I mean, it is possible, to contact Aqua and find out what a metering system would be worth, so that that could be put out there for the residents to see whether or not that is something that they would be willing to take on? Because if it reduced their water consumption enough, it may actually, over a period of 3 or 4 years, it might pay for the meters.
So thank you, through you. Yes, we did have conversations that we would continue that discussion. I believe it is also further to that, in that it would require some administration on our end as well, because once you do that, you now have to read meters, and that would require some resources here. So the picture is bigger. So I think we all recognize it would be a good idea. I believe, I don't know if Evan is still on there, but I believe there was a figure of around $1,000 for a meter, but of course there'd be installation. And yeah, we would like to look at potentially doing that, and we did discuss that recently, but we have to look at the big picture as well and the resources it would require here, because it would be a billing probably monthly. So somebody actually reading meters, and I'm understanding you can drive by the meters to do that, but there's still a process here for billing and something to be worked out.
Donna, with all of the issues now on green energy and saving energy and all the rest of that, would there be funding out there for that initiative? Because obviously there's a huge savings in water there. Is that something that we could be inquiring about?
So thank you, through you. We're always on the lookout for funding. I haven't seen anything recently for water, but we could have a look at that for sure. Because it would be something that would potentially save energy. So yes, so, you know, I'm not aware of something right now, but we could certainly look at that.
Okay, any questions, or is there a motion to receive this report? Motion, Councillor Armstrong?
I would make a motion to report and to approve the proposed 2022 water rates.
Okay, and a seconder, Councillor Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Administration, none. Corporate services, Jesse. An open road allowance. This is the one we discussed, I think.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor Clarkson. We had Harold Drew speak earlier in the meeting, and he provided the background for the proposal of the unopened road allowance adjacent to his property at 93 Fire Route 89. And while the unopened road allowance does lead to water, staff are of the opinion that the proposal that Harold would relinquish Part 3 on the map provided would be sufficient to enhance the public access to the west of the property. Staff recommend that council direct staff to advise Harold Drew to proceed with the offer of purchase, and that council support the sale of the unopened road allowance subject to Harold relinquishing a portion to the municipality, and that such support will expire in 3 years.
Oh my God.
Councillor Lambsdale?
Yeah, I would like to make that motion that I've received the report and that to direct as recommended.
Okay.
I'll
and
second it.
it'll be seconded by Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? The motion is carried. For the Pine Ridge District School Board and Peterborough, Victoria, Northumberland, Clarington Catholic District School Board, City, County of Peterborough Education Development Charges. Barb, you are going to speak to this, please.
Yes, through you, Mayor Clarkson. So I did took some time to read through both of these bylaws. They're pretty much identical. And they are pretty much written the same way that our DC bylaw and the county DC bylaws are written. So they have the same language. The only difference that I could see between the two, and I alluded to before, is that if a building is destroyed by fire or it's demolished or taken down for other reasons, if it's a residential building, you have a 2-year window to rebuild without having to pay the DC fee. And if it is a non-residential building, you have a 5-year window. That's really the only difference that I'm seeing between these and our current DC bylaws. As with all DCs, they are collectible at the time of building permit issuance. And I did add them up. So if somebody's building a brand new house, between the township DC fee, which is $54.31, the county DC is $85.81 and 35 cents. The Catholic School Board is $362, and the Pine Ridge School Board is $436. Before I even issued the building permit, they are sitting at $14,810 and 35 cents.
Terrible. Okay.
And I actually did ask her clarification, and let me just pull this email up from Jeanette Thompson. She is from the Kawartha Pine Ridge School Board. I just wanted clarification on what the DCs are for. She said the fees can only be used for site acquisitions, site preparation related costs to prepare the EDC study. So just like our fees, they are associated with development, or ours are a little bit different because roads and rec comes into play, but
Yeah.
it's not for maintenance purposes. That was my question. I wondered if some of the money got rolled into the schools for maintenance of the schools or to assist with paying for some of the services. But she clarified that it's all development.
So if there aren't any schools being built in the area or additions, what are they doing with this money?
They will put it in a reserve, and they will use the money when they need to, when they do build a school or they have to put additions or portables. Can go to portables. Like the Buckhorn School has 2 portables, for example. I just issued a permit for one of them recently.
Okay, so we just need a motion to receive this report. I don't think we can do anything about it. Councillor Branson?
Yeah, just with a comment. All of these costs are going to be transferred on to new homeowners, and it's already difficult enough for them to make ends meet.
Okay, so you're making the motion. Do we have a seconder?
Yes.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Motion is carried. Correspondence for information. Does anybody want to pull any of these out and speak to them? If not, we will have one motion for all. Okay. Councillor, I'm looking for people here.
Whatever.
I would make a motion to receive all of the
She's over
correspondence.
there. Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Lanshead, all in favor. Thank you. Correspondence for action, City of Waterloo. So it right the first time. We need a motion. Councillor Franzen.
A motion to support.
Okay, and do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion is carried. Courageous Canine advertising request. Do we have a motion for this? Much is it for? The recommendation down here, I can't see, is $295. Councillor Franzen?
A comment, and then I'll make a motion. Have we supported this group in the past?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, to Councillor Franzen, yes, we have. This is the amount that was approved last year, and I believe it has been for several years in the past.
Okay, I'll make that a motion then, to
Okay.
support.
Thank you, Councillor Franzen. Councillor Lambshead, all in favor?
And ma'am, can we make sure that they go through the grant application process in the future?
Yes.
Because this is more of a grant, right? It's,
No.
no? Okay.
Ned.
I-
I know what you're saying, because
Yeah.
this, it comes out of the same pot.
Okay.
No, it comes out of an advertising request budget. There's 3,000 in it for
Okay, thank you.
advertisements and publications.
It just comes up random. Okay, all right. Bylaws on the memorandum. Jesse?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Clarkson. There are several bylaws on today's agenda that did not have a public meeting or a corresponding report to council. The first is B 2022-27, which is the bylaw to maintain the status quo for council remuneration for the new term of council as directed at the March 8th meeting. B 2022-28 is a bylaw to align the travel expenses to the CRA, again effective November 15th, 2022, directed at the March 8th meeting. B 2022-36 is to amend the waste bylaw to formalize the direction from council regarding the issuance of waste cards to municipally owned buildings from the March 8th meeting. B 2022-39 is the annual bylaw appointing the County of Peterborough weed inspectors for 2022. 41 is an amendment to the development charge bylaw. Statutory public meeting was held March 8th. And 42 is a bylaw to formally repeal the interim control bylaw for Oak Orchard.
Okay. We don't need a motion for that.
Not for the memo, no.
Okay. So business arising out of a previous, yes.
So we do need one for either all of the bylaws together or individually, whatever you prefer.
That's what, yeah, okay. Can we have a motion for all of these bylaws together, please? Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Motion is carried.
May I make a comment also, Mayor, about the interim control bylaw? I think that's an important step that our planning and building department have made in the last year or so. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, through you, Mayor Clarkson, I would like to speak to that one, just so you can understand why it's there. Each specific bylaw, there was a section in each specific bylaw where we did say that subsequent to the bylaw coming into force and effect, the interim control bylaw 2021-071, originally put into effect on June 1st, 2021, shall be repealed. We've taken this one step further to do a separate repeal bylaw only because a couple of reasons. For clarity, and because the zoning bylaw is under section 34 of the Planning Act, the interim control bylaw is under section 38 of the Act. So we just wanted a nice clean bylaw to say that it has been repealed. We did receive 2 appeals on the bylaw that dealt with lots 10 to 19, and one of them was based on the fact that they didn't feel the interim control bylaw was dealt with appropriately. So they are going to probably be withdrawing that appeal, given that the ICBL will be repealed today.
So then, Barb, does this clear their way to start to get some building permits?
It does for all the other 3 lots. So, sorry, 3 bylaws. So all the vacants, all the built lots and the open spaces, so if they so wish to get permits for those, can start on the process of making application to lift the hold and to enter into the site plan agreement. The fourth bylaw, which is being appealed specifically by one particular lot who is willing to release almost all of the other lots from the appeal so that they could get going, but there is a process. The solicitor will have to make a motion to the tribunal and ask for all the other lots to be released from the appeal so that the appeal only is specific to lot 18. I don't know how long that process will take. So until that is complete, those 10 to 19 will be in a holding pattern. But we have done a lot of work here at our end. Derek has put together a website specific for Oak Orchard. We're going to have the applications on there for them. We're going to have like fact information or a guide to give them very clear, this is what we need to have submitted. We are going to work our very best to get these through as quick as possible, trying to hit council meetings, but we may have to call, if we get a bunch of them at once, I will ask for a special council meeting to deal with them because they are fighting timelines now to get contractors and to get into the ground. So I think we're in good shape. I feel this is a win, given we only had one bylaw appealed.
Well, I think I speak for council that if we can speed the process up by having a special meeting, we would all be very much in support of that. These poor people have waited long enough, and staff have certainly waited long enough, and it's a chapter that is fortunately starting to come to a conclusion for everybody, and it's been a heartbreak. So thank you, Barb, very much, and I guess that deals with that pretty much. We don't need any more motions here. Okay. Any business arising from a previous meeting that anybody wants to bring up? And Councillor Franzen, you have a notice of motion. Would you like to?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. This is a notice of motion on a temporary moratorium on new gravel mining applications. This is a long motion, so be patient, please. Ontario currently has 5,000 licensed pits and quarries located throughout the province that are able to meet the expected or near-term needs of Ontario's construction industry. And whereas applications continue.
Excuse me, I'm going to leave the room now.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Whereas gravel pits and quarries are destructive to the natural environment and habitats, and whereas pits and quarries have a negative social impact on host communities in the terms of noise, air pollution, and truck traffic. And whereas the urgent need to reduce greenhouse gas emission in order to combat climate change has brought awareness to our very high carbon footprint associated with the production of concrete and asphalt, which are major end users for aggregates. Whereas there is an obligation to consult First Nations people regarding the impacts of quarries on treaty lands and responsibility to address those impacts. Whereas now therefore be it resolved that the Ontario government will request an impost on immediate temporary moratorium on all new gravel mining applications pending a broad consultation process, including with First Nations, affected communities, independent experts, and scientists to chart a new path forward to the gravel mining in Ontario, which reposes the criteria and processes for determining the need for new gravel licenses. Recommended update policies restrictions for gravel mining below the water table to reflect the current groundwater sciences. Develop new guidelines to reposting in order to ensure a sustainable aggregate supply. Recommendations of a fair levy for gravel mining that includes the compensation for full environmental and infrastructure maintenance costs to the local community of extraction, and distribution of the aggregate. Provide greater weight to the input by local municipalities to lessen the social impacts from mining operations and trucking through their community. Proposes revisions to an application procedures which fully honor First Nations treaty rights, and further, a copy of this resolution be sent to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, MPP Dave Smith, lower tier municipalities in Peterborough County and the city of Kawartha Lake. Thank you. I make that motion.
Deputy Mayor Windover, you're in the chair.
Yeah, you need to ask for it.
Yes, I can't support this. We have so many rules and regulations in this province of ours. The same thing as in development.
Point of order, I think you need to call for a seconder on that vote, on that.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said, okay, no.
Deputy Mayor, you're in the chair. Mayor Clarkson has left the meeting.
Is anyone seconding it? Motion? Yes, Carol, you're seconding it?
I will second the motion with a comment. I mean, this is a very complex issue. It's not clear what the supply demand position is in the province right now. I know there has been imports from outside of Ontario over the past several years, but I do think it's probably time for there to be a new assessment of supply versus demand and consideration of all of the things that were in the motion. So again, it's very complex. I don't profess to understand all of it, but I do think it is appropriate to request that the province take, at this time, a look at the industry with the expertise it requires to determine where we need to go for future supply and demand.
Yes, Terry?
Yeah, I kind of concur with Councillor Armstrong. We don't even know what the province's position on licensing new quarries or stuff is, or what the quantities they're going to need. I would like to get some information from the province to see where they're, I mean, we have 5,000 quarries in operation in Ontario, I believe it is. So
yeah,
do we ever need more? Do we have enough? I need to kind of get more information. I would prefer to ask for information before I support a motion that's going to try to prevent anything new. I mean, I think all the information in this is probably absolutely right. I know that we need to do something, but to have a moratorium on new permits, I don't know if that's the right road to take at this time. I just need information, I'm sorry.
Yes, Carol?
I don't disagree with Councillor Lamstead, although in researching this a little bit, there hasn't been a good supply demand analysis done in over 5 years. So I think, something needs to be done and a catalyst needs to be provided for the province to undertake that because everybody's resource strapped, and unless there is some push to do so, it just won't happen. And we'll just see these things proliferate, and maybe they need to, but we don't know. We just don't know.
Yes, Terry?
Just one more little comment and then I'm done. I mean, if we say new applications, I mean, we have several applications that are halfway down the pipe there now, and there's been hundreds of thousands of dollars and thousands of staff time and person time in trying to get these developed. I mean, whether they go ahead or not is not really for us to see yet. It's just that, are we talking new permits that would start today?
Councillor Brands, perhaps you can comment on that?
Yeah. I don't believe so, because first of all, it would be in the province's court to set up this moratorium. And I'm sure that's not going to be happening anytime soon. I think that a lot of the power should go back to the affected communities. We don't get well compensated for the gravel. We have virtually no say because whenever we make a decision, our decision is taken to LPAC, and virtually the province makes the decision on where the quarries go and where they wouldn't go. And as a member of municipal council, we take the blame for any new quarry application. It's council's fault that it comes forward. So if we take the blame, we should have some of the responsibility of setting up these quarries.
Well, do we want to vote on this? All in favor of this? Motion lost.
I'm sorry, did you call for the vote? I didn't hear a call for the vote.
Yes, I did, sorry. I said in favor, call the vote in favor of it. Not in favor?
If you don't vote in favor, it's automatically no.
So, yeah, okay, the motion will be lost. It's a tie.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council.
I guess Janet, you come back in?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll finish that. Liaison reports. We got anything from any of the boards or committees that anybody wants to speak to? Nope. Appeals for Oak Orchard. Barb, you're going to speak to this one, I think.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson. Sorry, I think I jumped ahead on that. I already kind of touched on that. So we did receive 2 appeals. The one before you right now was for lot 10. I have been in communication with the solicitor representing lot 10, and she has indicated to me today that they are most likely going to pull their appeal once the ICBL was approved. So I don't think we need to worry about this one. The second one was for lot 18. Lot 18 is being represented by Mr. Melling, and the intent of this one basically is that lot 18 feels that he needs to have a secondary suite, and they're going to use the bylaw in order to try to obtain that secondary suite. We made it clear from the outset that we were not diving deep into each individual lot. We were doing this as a overview just to try to deal with the issue that was on the ground. But Mr. Melling has made an appeal on behalf of his client, and he will be going to the tribunal to pull out all the other lots, with the exception of one other lot, so that the other people can begin construction once they clear their lots, and then he will be pursuing his matter before the OLT.
And he realizes how long that's going to take.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barb. Again, well done. Have we any other information items? Now we're going into a closed meeting to discuss personal matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees and labor relations or employee negotiation. Anyone that is listening or viewing the electronic meeting may this closed session. May I have a motion to go into close, please? Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion is carried.
I just want to remind council that we do have a committee of adjustment meeting at 4:30 tonight. Hopefully we don't get long-winded in our final.
Thanks.
Peter, you've joined the dark side.
Where do you go?
Oh, there he's coming back. Okay. All right, we need a motion to rise from closed. And that would be Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Lanshead, all in favor. Motion is carried. Business arising from closed. Adoption of the minutes from the regular meeting of March 22nd. Councillor Armstrong and Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor. Motion is carried. Adoption of confirming bylaw and the confirming bylaw. Motion, please. Councillor Lambshead. I lost Peter again. There he is. And Councillor Franzen, all in favor. Motion is carried. The adjournment. We didn't do it. Okay, motion to adjourn. Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Armstrong, Deputy Mayor Windover, and Councillor Franzen. Favor. Thank you, folks.
Sweet.
Thank you.